I was a victim in a relationship which culminated in me being attacked with sulphuric acid.
Andrew Baker may not fit the usual profile of a victim of domestic abuse, but he bears the scars on his face and neck of an attack by an abusive boyfriend.
When I left that relationship, I was stalked and assaulted again in my own home, and then because I didn't go back to that relationship, my ex-partner paid somebody to throw the sulphuric acid over me. With that mindset that he had, he would have killed me if he hadn't have been deported. But there are people in this country who are not going to be deported, and the perpetrators are just as determined, and they can be male or female perpetrators.
While the majority of those who suffer domestic violence are undoubtedly women, the latest figures from the National Crime Survey are startling, suggesting last year 1 in 3, that's around 700,000, were men. And their stories of manipulation, coercion and aggression are familiar.
I would be woken up in the middle of the night and attacked, stabbed, burnt. The physical was actually quite easy to deal with. It was the mental abuse as well. I didn't leave because I thought I could help her, I could change her. Also, I wanted to give the kids a good home, and I thought if I put more effort in or try different things, then maybe she could change.
The government recently said it recognises all victims of domestic violence. Campaigners, however, are concerned proposed new legislation will see domestic abuse continue to come under the Violence Against Women and Girls strategy, by definition, neglecting the experience of men.
People see it in very simple terms, that men hitting a woman, that's what domestic violence is.
After his own experience of abuse, Andrew helped establish outreach services for male victims, working at one of the few refuges for men.
The needs for refuge are exactly the same for men and for women. When somebody leaves an abusive relationship, the trauma and the emotional and psychological impact of that can't be resolved if there isn't support and help available.
Hello, can I help you?
This refuge is one of only 8 dedicated for men in the whole of the UK. Out of more than 3,600 refuge spaces, only 34 are solely for male victims of abuse. Chris has been here for 2 months.
It's been good in the end having the space here. It was nervous and difficult at the beginning and that, but I'm getting there with it and everything now. Sort of always somebody to talk to, that always helps. So if you are struggling, you can go in and speak to somebody and they're prepared to listen and they're very sympathetic.
Sometimes men are very broken when they come here. They don't want to go out, they don't want to do anything. But the staff in the refuge is really encouraging and gave the men power to kind of look after themselves. It looks and feels like a normal house because this is what we want for the people who come here. We don't want to then feel like an institution. We've got 2 family rooms because men sometimes bring the children.
I was trapped, yeah, really, really trapped with nowhere to turn. I got child services, social services, the police involved. It was very hard to be believed. The general consensus was it was me and I was trying to cover up abuse on her. The police were called numerous times, but then they would just tell me to man up or leave. They were mainly pushing for me to leave by myself, but the children would have ended up in care, without a doubt, which of course would have been awful.
Men are more reluctant to ask for help when they need it because they're brought up to be strong and to be able to look after themselves, and we use terms like man up, which are obviously really inappropriate because it leaves men feeling like they should be able to handle it on their own. But there's also other barriers whereby I think because of how we talk about domestic violence socially as an issue, it means men often don't feel like they can be victims because it's still constructed so much as an issue of men's violence towards women.
The challenges men face when reporting abuse are reflected in the numbers accessing support. Although they make up 1/3 of victims, only 5% of those seen by specialist domestic abuse services are male.
domestic violence and domestic abuse and sexual abuse happens to men and to women, and services need to accept and acknowledge that, and all services should support victims.
If it hadn't been for the refuge, either I would be dead, or my son would be dead, or I'd be in prison, or homeless.
Miss her a lot, but yeah, no, couldn't go back there now. Sort of just now moving on and trying to make new friends and things now.